I have always believed in patterns. They comfort me. They make sense of chaos. Every morning I wake at 6:17, not 6:15 or 6:20, but 6:17 because that is when the light through my bedroom window hits the exact angle that tells me the day has begun properly. I make coffee in the same blue mug, 3 spoons of grounds, water heated to 195 degrees, steeped for exactly 4 minutes. I drive the same route to the precinct, taking Elm to 5th to the station parking lot, 3rd row, 4th space. I order my thoughts the same way I order my day. Beginning, middle, end. Problem, investigation, solution, chaos, analysis, order. This is how I have solved 43 cases in 12 years. This is how I sleep at night. This is how I know I am good at what I do. The first victim was found on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are for paperwork, so I remember feeling annoyed at the interruption. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, 29, pharmaceutical sales representative, found in her apartment by a neighbor who noticed her door was ajar. No signs of forced entry, no signs of struggle. She was seated at her kitchen table, hands folded in her lap, head tilted slightly to the right as if she had simply fallen asleep mid-thought. The medical examiner said it was cardiac arrest, sudden and complete, but her heart was healthy, her blood was clean, her medical history unremarkable. The case bothered me because it did not fit a pattern I recognized. Random deaths happen, I told myself. Sometimes the body simply stops for no reason medicine can explain. I filed the report, marked it unexplained natural causes, and moved on. I had a robbery case that needed my attention, a clear-cut pattern of break-ins on the north side, and patterns I understand are patterns I can solve. The second victim was found 3 weeks later. His name was Marcus Webb, 34, high school teacher, found in his car in the school parking lot after hours. Same presentation, seated upright, hands in lap, head tilted right, dead from sudden cardiac arrest despite a clean bill of health. The responding officer noted the similarity to the Mitchell case and flagged it for me. I reviewed both files side by side on a Thursday afternoon. Thursdays are for cold cases and loose ends. The similarities were notable but not necessarily connected. Different neighborhoods, different professions, different social circles. No evidence they had ever met. The only link was the manner of death, and even that could be coincidence. Sudden cardiac death in apparently healthy adults happens more than people think. I made a note in both files about the potential connection but did not open a joint investigation. Patterns require 3 points minimum. 2 points can be a coincidence. I returned to the robbery case, which I closed the following week. I remember feeling satisfied. Order restored. The third victim was found on a Monday. Mondays are for new assignments. Her name was Rachel Torres, 41, accountant, found in her office after the cleaning crew arrived. Same position, same cause of death, same inexplicable nature. This time I could not dismiss it. 3 points make a pattern. I opened a joint investigation, requested all medical records, all personal effects, all digital footprints. I interviewed family members, colleagues, friends. I looked for connections, intersections, any point where their lives might have touched. I found nothing. They lived in different parts of the city, shopped at different stores, belonged to different gyms, attended different churches or no church at all. Their paths should never have crossed. Yet something connected them. Someone connected them. I knew this the way I know the sun rises in the east. It was 3 weeks after Olson that I noticed something I should have noticed sooner. I was reviewing closed cases for my annual performance evaluation, tallying statistics, calculating clearance rates. I was looking at dates. Sarah Mitchell had died on a Tuesday, 3 days after I closed a fraud case. Marcus Webb had died on a Tuesday, for days after I closed that robbery case. Rachel Torres had died on a Monday, 2 days after I closed an assault case. David Chun had died on a Tuesday, 3 days after I closed a burglary case. Jennifer Olson had died on a Tuesday, 2 days after I closed that domestic assault case. The pattern was not in the victims. The pattern was in the timing. Every death occurred within days of me closing an unrelated case. Every death happened in the space between my solving one problem and beginning another. Every death happened during my moment of satisfaction, my moment of restored order. I told myself it was coincidence. I closed many cases. Statistically, some deaths would occur near those closures simply by chance. But I pulled more files. I went back further. Over the past year, there had been 9 unexplained deaths in the city, all with the same presentation, all ruled natural causes or simply unexplained. I had only investigated 4 of them as a potential series. I had not connected the others because they were spread out, assigned to different detectives, filed in different ways. But when I mapped them against my closed cases, every single one occurred within a week of me solving something. Every single one occurred during that window when I felt most competent, most certain, most in control. I sat at my desk at 11 o'clock at night staring at the spreadsheet I had created, watching the dates line up with impossible precision, and I felt something beyond fear. I felt the ground shift beneath my certainty. I needed to test this. I needed to know if the correlation was real or if I was losing my grip on rational thought. I could not tell anyone. They would think I was paranoid, burned out, projecting meaning onto chaos because I could not accept that some things are meaningless. So I watched. I worked my cases as I always did, following procedure, gathering evidence, drawing conclusions. But I paid attention to the timing. I closed a theft case on a Friday. I waited. On the following Tuesday, a man named Robert Price was found dead in his apartment. Cardiac arrest. Hands folded, head tilted right. I closed a vandalism case on a Wednesday. I waited. On the following Monday, a woman named Lisa Park was found dead in her car. Same presentation, same inexplicable cause. I closed an assault case on a Thursday. I waited. On the following Saturday, a man named Thomas Wright was found dead at his gym. I stopped waiting. I knew the correlation was not coincidence. Somehow, impossibly, my solving cases was connected to these deaths. But connection is not causation. I had not killed these people. I had never met them, never spoken to them, never been in the same room with them. My work had nothing to do with their lives. And yet the pattern was undeniable. Within days of me closing a case, someone died. Not just died, but died in exactly the same way, with exactly the same presentation, as if following a script I could not see. I considered every rational explanation. Perhaps someone at the precinct was leaking information about my closed cases and using that timing for their own purposes. Perhaps I was being watched, my routines monitored, my closures used as a signal. Perhaps the killer needed a specific window of time and was using my public record of case closures as a convenient marker. None of these explanations felt right. None of them explained the precision of the pattern. I began to vary my routine. I took different routes to work, started arriving at different times, changed my coffee order, parked in different spaces. I thought if I was being watched, if my predictability was somehow essential to the pattern, then breaking that predictability might break the pattern. I closed a shoplifting case on a Tuesday. I waited, my stomach tight with anticipation and dread. Thursday passed. Friday passed. Saturday passed. Sunday evening, a woman named Angela Rivera was found dead in her home. Same presentation, same timing. My route to work had not mattered. My parking space had not mattered. My coffee had not mattered. The only thing that mattered was the closure. The only thing that mattered was me completing the pattern of problem, investigation, solution. The only thing that mattered was my moment of satisfaction. I started looking at the victims differently. I had been looking for what connected them to each other. Now I looked for what connected them to me. I combed through their backgrounds again, looking for any intersection with my life, any moment where we might have crossed paths. I found small things, meaningless things that became terrible in their potential meaning. Sarah Mitchell had once parked her car 3 spaces from mine at a grocery store, captured on security footage I pulled from archives. Marcus Webb had attended the same community college as me, though 15 years apart. Rachel Torres had a cousin who lived on my street. David Chun had called the precinct once to report a noise complaint, though I had not been the responding officer. Jennifer Olson had used the same dry cleaner as me. Every victim had some tenuous, forgettable connection to my existence. Nothing that should matter. Nothing that would matter in any other context. But in this context, everything mattered. I began to understand what I was seeing. These were not random victims. These were people who had brushed against my life in some small way, people who existed in my peripheral awareness, people who would mean nothing to me until I saw their names on a death certificate. Someone was choosing them specifically because of their connection to me, however slight. Someone was building a pattern around my existence. But why? What purpose did it serve? What was the message? I spent weeks trying to decode it, looking for meaning in the selection process, searching for a motive I could comprehend. I found nothing. The victims were too ordinary, their connections to me too trivial, their deaths too clean and inexplicable. There was no message I could read, no motive I could deduce. There was only the pattern itself, repeating with mechanical precision. Then I noticed something else. I went back through the investigation files, looking at my own notes, my own process. For each of the deaths I had investigated, I had interviewed dozens of people. I had cleared suspects, eliminated possibilities, ruled out explanations. I had done my job thoroughly and competently, but I started cross-referencing the people I had cleared with subsequent deaths. Marcus Webb was someone I had interviewed during the Sarah Mitchell investigation. I had spoken to him because he lived in the same apartment complex, though he had no connection to her death. I cleared him, documented that he had no relevant information, and moved on. 3 weeks later, he was dead. Rachel Torres was someone I had interviewed during the Marcus Webb investigation. She worked at the same school, though in the administrative office, and had seen Webb occasionally in passing. I cleared her, noted she had no useful information, and moved on. 2 weeks later, she was dead. David Chun was someone I had interviewed during the Rachel Torres investigation. He had been her tax preparer. I cleared him, confirmed he had no knowledge of her personal life beyond financial records, and moved on. 3 weeks later, he was dead. The pattern was not just in the timing. The pattern was in my process. Every victim after the first had been someone I personally cleared during a previous investigation. Every victim had been someone I interviewed, evaluated, and dismissed as irrelevant. Every victim had been someone I told, implicitly or explicitly, that they were not involved, not important, not worth further attention. I had cleared them. I had freed them. I had sent them back to their lives with my professional assurance that they had nothing to worry about. And then they died. Not immediately, but soon. Not randomly, but precisely. Not by their own failure, but by my completion. I cleared them, I closed the case, and then they died. I was not investigating the murders. I was selecting the victims. I was providing the list. I was completing the preparation. I was the process. I did not sleep for 3 days after I understood this. I sat at my kitchen table with every file spread before me, mapping the connections, confirming the pattern, hoping I was wrong even as I proved I was right. Every death traced back to my investigation. Every victim had been touched by my work, cleared by my judgment, freed by my conclusion. I was not chasing a killer. I was not solving a mystery. I was feeding a machine I did not understand with fuel I provided through the simple act of doing my job well. My competence was the weapon. My thoroughness was the selection process. My closure was the trigger. The killer, whoever they were, whatever they were, did not need to choose victims. I chose them. The killer did not need to plan timing. I provided it through my routine, my clearances, my closures. The killer did not need to do anything except wait for me to do what I do best. Solve problems, restore order, complete patterns. I thought about going to my captain. I thought about presenting this evidence, explaining the correlation, demanding resources for a proper investigation. But what would I say? That my solving cases was killing people. That my competence was murder. That every time I did my job correctly, someone died. I had no physical evidence. I had no suspect. I had no explanation for the mechanism of death. I only had a pattern, and patterns can be coincidence, can be apophenia, can be the human brain finding meaning in chaos because chaos is intolerable. My captain would think I was having a breakdown. He would put me on leave. He would assign my cases to someone else. And then what? Would the pattern follow them? Would the deaths continue? Or would the pattern break because I was no longer the one closing cases? I did not know. I could not risk finding out, because if the pattern broke when I stopped, that would prove it. That would prove my participation. That would prove my guilt. I tried to stop working cases. I called in sick for a week. I told my captain I had the flu, needed rest, would return when recovered. I waited to see if deaths would still occur. They did not. 7 days passed without a single unexplained death in the city. I returned to work and my captain immediately assigned me a breaking and entering case. I worked it slowly, reluctantly, stretching the investigation out over 2 weeks. I did not want to close it. I did not want to trigger the pattern. But eventually I had no choice. The evidence was clear, the suspect was caught, the case was solved. I filed the closure on a Thursday afternoon. On Monday morning, a man named Patrick Sullivan was found dead in his car. He had been a witness I interviewed and cleared during the breaking and entering investigation. He had seen nothing useful, provided no relevant information, and I had thanked him for his time and moved on. Now he was dead. Same presentation, same inexplicable cause, same terrible confirmation that my understanding was correct. I realized I had 3 choices. I could continue working, knowing that each case I solved would lead to a death. I could stop working, which would save lives but would also confirm my participation and potentially expose the pattern to others who might investigate why death stopped when I stopped. Or I could work but refuse to close cases, leaving them open indefinitely, letting crimes go unsolved, allowing chaos to persist. Each choice was impossible. Each choice led to harm. Each choice made me complicit in different ways. If I continued working normally, I was knowingly feeding victims to an unknown killer. If I stopped working, I was abandoning my duty and potentially allowing other crimes to go unsolved, other victims to go without justice. If I worked but did not close cases, I was failing at my job, losing credibility, becoming useless while still potentially triggering the pattern through incomplete investigations. I chose to continue working. I told myself that I had no proof the correlation was causal. I told myself that even if it was causal, I did not understand the mechanism, did not know who the killer was, did not have any way to stop them directly. I told myself that my job was important, that solving crimes mattered, that I could not simply stop because of a pattern I could not prove to anyone else. I told myself these things and I worked my cases and I closed them and I waited for the deaths that I knew would come. They came. Every time. Like clockwork. Like routine. Like pattern. I learned to recognize the weight in my chest when I filed a closure. The dread that came with satisfaction. Months passed. I closed 32 cases in that time. 32 deaths followed. I started making mistakes at work. Small ones at first. Missing appointments, forgetting to file reports, losing track of evidence. My captain noticed. He asked if I was all right. I told him I was fine, just tired, maybe working too hard. He suggested I take vacation time. I could not take vacation time. If I stopped working, the deaths would stop, and I could not face that confirmation. If I kept working, the deaths would continue, and I could not face that confirmation either. So I existed in a space between choices, going through motions, solving cases because that is what I do, knowing that my competence was killing people, unable to stop because stopping would prove it and continuing meant accepting it. I was trapped in a pattern of my own making, a routine that had become a weapon I could not put down. I began to research unexplained deaths in other cities, looking for similar patterns, hoping to find that this was not unique to me. I found nothing conclusive. Some clusters of cardiac arrests, some unexplained deaths, but nothing with the same precision, the same timing, the same connection to a single investigator. This was mine. This pattern belonged to me. It had been built around me, calibrated to me, designed to use me. But by whom? I had no suspects. I had no physical evidence of another person's involvement. Every death appeared natural. Every investigation found nothing. The only common factor was me. My interviews, my clearances, my closures, my routine. I started to wonder if there was anyone else at all. I started to wonder if I was somehow causing these deaths myself through some mechanism I did not understand. But that was impossible. I had never touched these people beyond handshakes and interview questions. I had no medical knowledge, no access to poisons, no means to cause cardiac arrest remotely. I was a detective, not a killer. But the distinction was becoming harder to maintain. One night, I drove to the home of the next victim I knew would die. I had just closed an arson case that afternoon, and I knew that within the next few days, someone I had interviewed and cleared would be found dead. There were 4 people I had cleared during that investigation. I chose the one who lived closest to me, and I sat in my car across the street from his house. His name was Andrew Foster, 43, accountant, lived alone. I watched his windows for hours. I saw him move through his evening routine, make dinner, watch television, turn off lights, go to bed. I sat there until 2 in the morning, watching his dark windows, waiting for something to happen. Nothing happened. I went home. The next evening I returned and watched again. And the next. On the 4th night, I fell asleep in my car. I woke at dawn to my phone ringing. It was the precinct. Andrew Foster had been found dead in his bed by his cleaning service. Cardiac arrest. I had been parked outside his house, watching, waiting, and I had fallen asleep during the exact window when he died. I had been right there and I had seen nothing. No one entering the house. No disturbance. No sign of anything but a man going to sleep and not waking up. I drove away before the responding officers arrived. I could not be there. I could not explain why I had been watching. After that, I stopped trying to catch the killer. I understood there was nothing to catch. This was not a person sneaking into homes and stopping hearts through conventional means. This was something else, something I could not see or measure or prevent. The pattern was the only thing that existed. My work, my clearance, my closure, and then death. Cause and effect with no visible mechanism. Action and reaction with no physical connection. I was a component in a system I could not comprehend, performing a function I had not chosen, completing a process I could not stop. I thought about quitting. I drafted resignation letters. I imagined walking away from the precinct and never returning. But I have considered turning myself in, confessing to murders I did not commit but nevertheless caused, letting them lock me away where I cannot close cases, cannot clear suspects, cannot complete the pattern. But what would I confess to? What crime would I name? What evidence would I present? I have killed no one with my hands. I have only done my job. I have only solved problems and restored order and completed investigations. That these actions lead to death is a correlation I cannot prove is causal, a pattern I cannot explain to anyone who has not lived inside it the way I have. They would think I was insane. They would put me in a hospital, not a prison. And maybe they would be right. Maybe I am insane. Maybe this pattern exists only in my mind, a delusion born from guilt I cannot place, a story I tell myself to make sense of random tragedy. Maybe there is no connection at all between my work and these deaths. Maybe I have constructed an elaborate fiction to give myself importance, to make myself central to something I am powerless to affect. But I do not believe that, cannot believe that. The correlation is too precise. The timing is too consistent. The selection is too deliberate. These deaths are not random. They are not coincidence. They are pattern, and pattern is what I understand. Pattern is what I do, pattern is what I am. I know patterns the way other people know faces or names or songs. I know when they are real and when they are imagined. This pattern is real. These deaths are connected to me. My clearances select the victims. My closures trigger the timing. My routine enables the process. I am not chasing a killer. I am not solving a mystery. I am the mechanism. I am the tool. I am the necessary component without which none of this would work. The killer, whoever or whatever they are, needs me, needs my interviews to select victims, needs my clearances to mark them, needs my closures to set the timing, needs my routine to maintain the pattern. Without me, there are no murders. Without me, the pattern breaks. I have one choice left. I can stop closing cases. I can investigate but never conclude. I can interview but never clear. I can gather evidence but never file closure. I can break the pattern by refusing to complete it. But that means failing at my job. That means leaving crimes unsolved, victims without justice, chaos without order. That means becoming useless at the thing I have built my entire identity around. That means admitting that my competence, my skill, my dedication to pattern and routine and order, all of it is poison. That I am better for the world when I fail than when I succeed. That my value lies in my incompleteness. That I must choose between being good at what I do and being good for the people around me. And I do not know if I can make that choice. I do not know if I can unmake myself so completely. The phone on my desk is ringing. I know what it is before I answer. I know because I understand the pattern now. I have lived inside it long enough to feel its rhythm like my own heartbeat. Someone has been found dead. Cardiac arrest. Hands folded. Head tilted right. Someone I cleared from a case last week. The pattern continues. The pattern always continues. I pick up the phone and I say, yes, I will take the case, I will investigate, I will interview witnesses, I will clear suspects, I will gather evidence, I will close the case when I find the answers. I will do my job. I will complete the pattern. I will restore order. Because that is what I do. That is what I am. And the alternative, the only alternative, is to stop being myself entirely. To stop working. To stop solving. To stop bringing order to chaos. To let the pattern break by breaking myself. I hang up the phone. I put on my coat. I drive to the scene. Third, I restore my order. I complete my pattern. Someone else will die because of this, because of me, because I cannot stop being what I am. I know this. I accept this. I continue anyway, because stopping would prove it. Stopping would confirm that I am necessary to murder. Stopping would mean admitting that the world is better when I fail. And I cannot live in a world where that is true. I cannot be a person for whom incompetence is virtue. I cannot choose to be useless. So I choose to be useful. I choose to be good at what I do. I choose to solve this case and close this file and wait for the next death that I know will come. I choose pattern over chaos, order over uncertainty, routine over change, completion over safety. I choose to continue. I choose to be the tool. I choose to be necessary to evil because the alternative is to be unnecessary to anything at all. This is what I have become. This is what the pattern has made me. This is what I am. I think about the first time I felt satisfaction in this job. I was 26, fresh from the academy, assigned to a veteran detective who taught me that every case tells a story if you know how to read it. He showed me how to see patterns in evidence, connections in timelines, truth in the gaps between what witnesses say and what they mean. He taught me that chaos is just pattern we have not yet decoded, that randomness is order we have not yet understood. He taught me to trust the process, to follow procedure, to believe in the power of methodical investigation. He retired 5 years ago. I wonder if he would recognize what I have become. I wonder if he would see this pattern I am trapped in and understand it the way I do, or if he would think I have lost my mind, seeing connections that do not exist, building conspiracy from coincidence. I wonder if I should call him, explain what I have discovered, ask for his wisdom. But I do not call, because I know what he would say. He would tell me to trust the evidence, to follow the facts, to let the pattern reveal itself through careful analysis. And the evidence is clear. The facts are undeniable. The pattern has revealed itself completely. I am the connection. I am the cause. I am the problem I cannot solve. There are moments when I try to convince myself this is all delusion, that I am experiencing a mental break, projecting agency onto random events, constructing elaborate narratives to explain simple tragedy. The human brain is hardwired to find patterns even where none exist. We see faces in clouds, meaning in coincidence, conspiracy in correlation. We cannot accept that the universe is indifferent, that terrible things happen for no reason, that we are powerless against chaos. So we build stories, create villains, assign blame, construct order from entropy. Maybe that is all this is. Maybe I am simply a detective who worked too many cases, stared too long into darkness, lost the ability to distinguish between pattern and paranoia. Maybe there is no connection between my work and these deaths. Maybe I have become the very thing I investigate, a mind unmoored from reality, seeing threats that do not exist, believing in my own importance to events I cannot control. Maybe I should turn myself in not as a murderer but as someone who needs help, who has lost the plot, who can no longer trust his own perception. Maybe that would be the responsible thing to do. But then I remember the precision. The timing is not approximate. It is exact. Within 3 to 7 days of every case closure, someone dies. Not sometimes, every time. The variation is minimal, the consistency is absolute. No delusion maintained. I have scrutinized this pattern for months. I have tested it, tracked it, tried to break it. It has never failed. It has never varied beyond its established parameters. It is as real as gravity, as reliable as sunrise, as certain as death. I am not imagining this. I am not projecting meaning onto meaninglessness. I am observing a genuine phenomenon, a true pattern, a real connection between my actions and others' deaths. The only question left is what I do with that knowledge. And that is the question I cannot answer. I have started keeping a personal log, separate from official files. I record every case I close, every person I clear, every detail that might help me understand the mechanism. I note the dates, the times, the circumstances of each closure. I track which witnesses I spoke to, which suspects I eliminated, which leads I followed, and which I abandoned. I document my routine, my routes, my habits, everything that might be relevant to how the pattern operates. I am investigating myself now, treating my own life as a crime scene, my own actions as evidence. I am both detective and suspect, investigator and investigated. I am trying to solve the mystery of how I became instrumental to murder without ever intending harm, without ever making a conscious choice to participate in evil. But the log reveals nothing I do not already know. I work cases. I clear innocence. I close files. People die. The mechanism remains invisible. The connection remains inexplicable. I am left with correlation I cannot explain and causation I cannot prove but cannot deny. Sometimes I imagine what the killer sees when they watch me, because they must be watching. They must be monitoring my cases, tracking my closures, waiting for me to provide them with their next victim. I imagine them reading my case files somehow, seeing who I interviewed, noting who I cleared, selecting from that pool the person whose death will serve whatever purpose they have. Or maybe they do not select at all. Maybe the pattern is automatic, mechanical, a process that runs without conscious direction once I have done my part. Maybe the killer is not a person at all but something else, something I lack the framework to understand. A system, a force, a mechanism that uses human agents without their knowledge or consent. I have stopped trying to understand what the killer is. I have accepted that understanding the nature of the killer may be impossible, may be irrelevant, may not even be a question that has meaning. The only thing that matters is the pattern, and the pattern is clear. I provide the fuel. The mechanism provides the fire. People burn. I have thought about running, leaving the city, changing my name, starting over somewhere else where I am not a detective, where I do not investigate crimes, where I do not close cases or clear suspects or complete patterns. I have researched other cities, other jobs, other lives I could build far from here. But I do not run. Because if I run, what happens to the cases I leave behind? What happens to the victims who need justice, the crimes that need solving, the chaos that needs order? Am I supposed to abandon all of that because my competence has consequences I did not foresee? Am I supposed to let criminals go free, let victims go unserved, let disorder prevail because restoring order has a cost I cannot accept? That seems like a different kind of evil, a different kind of harm. And what if running does not help? What if the pattern follows me? What if becoming a detective somewhere else simply transfers the mechanism to a new location, new victims, new deaths? Then running accomplishes nothing except spreading the harm to new places, new people, new communities who do not yet know what I am capable of causing. There are days when I think the only solution is to end my own life. If I am the necessary component, if the pattern cannot function without me, then removing myself removes the pattern. No more closures means no more deaths. No more clearances means no more victims. The mathematics are simple. One death, mine, to prevent dozens or hundreds of future deaths. The moral calculus seems obvious. Utilitarianism demands self-sacrifice when that sacrifice saves others. I am one person. The potential victims are many. The choice should be clear, but I cannot make that choice. I tell myself it is because I have no certainty that my death would actually stop the pattern. Maybe the killer would simply find another detective, another investigator, another person whose routine could be weaponized. Maybe the pattern would adapt, evolve, find new ways to function without me. My death might accomplish nothing except removing one more person from the world who understands that something terrible is happening. Or maybe I am simply a coward. Maybe I cannot face my own death even to save others. Maybe I value my own survival more than I value stopping the pattern. Maybe I am not the hero of this story but the villain, choosing to continue existing, continuing to enable murder, continuing to participate in a system I know is wrong because the alternative is personal sacrifice I am not willing to make. I have started to notice changes in how people respond to me. My captain looks at me differently now, with concern that borders on suspicion. My colleagues avoid extended conversations, keep their distance, treat me with the careful politeness reserved for people who might be unstable. I have become isolated without meaning to, separated by knowledge I cannot share and burden I cannot explain. They think I am burned out, stressed, maybe drinking too much or sleeping too little. They do not know that I am carrying the weight of 40 deaths, that I am instrumental to murder, that every case I close is a death sentence I deliver to someone who has done nothing wrong. They cannot know. If they knew, they would have to act. They would have to investigate me, interrogate me, try to prove I am lying or insane or guilty of crimes I cannot name. And I cannot face that interrogation. I cannot sit across from another detective and explain how solving crimes leads to murder. I cannot present this evidence to people who trust in procedure and protocol and rational explanation. They would not believe me, or worse, they would believe me and then I would have to face what I am in their eyes. Not a detective, not a professional, not a good person trying to do right, but a component, a mechanism, a tool of something evil. Last week, I attended the funeral of someone I got killed. Her name was Michelle Roberts, and she had been a witness in a fraud investigation I closed 6 weeks ago. I had interviewed her for 20 minutes, confirmed she had no relevant information, thanked her for her time, and cleared her from the suspect list. 32 days later, she was found dead in her home. Cardiac arrest. I went to her funeral because I needed to see what I had done, needed to face the consequence of my competence, needed to stand among people who loved her and know that I was responsible for their grief even if they did not know it. Her mother spoke about how Michelle had just gotten engaged, how she was planning a wedding for next spring, how she had her whole life ahead of her. Her fiancé could barely speak through his tears. Her friends shared stories about her kindness, and I stood in the back of the chapel knowing I had erased that future, knowing I had prevented that wedding, knowing I had caused all of this pain simply by doing my job well. No one looked at me with suspicion. No one knew who I was or what I had done. I was just another mourner, another person touched by tragedy, another face in the crowd grieving for a life cut short. But I knew, and that knowledge is a weight I carry every day, every hour, every moment. I have begun to wonder if I am the first, if this has happened before to other detectives in other cities in other times. If there is a pattern of patterns, a history of investigators who became instrumental to murder without understanding how or why. I have searched through old case files, looked for similar clusters of unexplained deaths, tried to find evidence that this phenomenon is not unique to me. I have found nothing conclusive. Some detectives had unusual numbers of sudden deaths among people they investigated, but nothing with the precision and consistency I am experiencing. Maybe I am the first. Maybe I am the test case, the proof of concept, the beginning of something that will spread to others if I do not stop it. Or maybe others experienced this and found ways to hide it, to rationalize it, to continue working despite knowing what they were causing. Maybe there are other detectives right now in other cities carrying the same burden, facing the same impossible choice, continuing to work because stopping would be admission of guilt they cannot face. Maybe I am part of a silent brotherhood of people who enable murder through competence, who kill through kindness, who destroy through duty. Maybe we are everywhere and no one knows because no one can know because the knowledge itself is unbearable. The case I am working now is different. A young woman has been reported missing. Her name is Elena Vasquez, 23, graduate student, last seen 3 days ago leaving the library. Her roommate filed the report when Elena did not come home and did not answer her phone. This is not a murder investigation yet. This is a missing person case, potentially a runaway, potentially a voluntary disappearance. But I am investigating it the way I investigate everything, methodically, carefully, following procedure. I have interviewed her roommate, her professors, her classmates. I have reviewed her phone records, her credit card activity, her social media presence. I have found no evidence of foul play, no indication of danger, no reason to believe she is anything other than a young woman who decided to leave without telling anyone. I am close to closing this case, to filing it as a voluntary disappearance, to clearing the people I have interviewed and moving on. But I cannot close it, because I know what closing it means. I know that within days of me filing that closure, one of the people I interviewed will be found dead. Elena's roommate, her faculty advisor, her study partner, someone I cleared will become a victim. And that makes me hesitate in a way I have never hesitated before. For the first time in my career, I am considering not closing a case I have effectively solved. I am considering leaving it open indefinitely, marked as an active investigation despite having no new leads to pursue. I am considering breaking my routine, abandoning my pattern, failing at my job in order to prevent the death I know will follow. But what if Elena Vasquez is not a voluntary disappearance? What if she is in danger? What if by refusing to close this case I am preventing other investigators from taking over, from pursuing leads I have not considered, from finding her before something terrible happens? What if my refusal to complete the pattern in this case leads to her death instead? Then I am still responsible. Then I am still the cause. Then I have just changed which person dies. And how do I make that choice? How do I decide that the potential victim of my closure is worth more than the potential victim of my inaction? How do I weigh lives I do not know, futures I cannot predict, deaths I cannot prevent regardless of what I do? The paralysis is complete. I cannot close the case. I cannot keep it open. I cannot solve the problem. I cannot escape the pattern. I am trapped between choices that both lead to harm, both lead to death, both make me complicit in evil I never intended but cannot deny. I have the closure paperwork in front of me right now. All I need to do is sign it, file it, submit it to the system. The case is solved as much as it can be solved. Elena Vasquez left voluntarily. There is no evidence of crime. The investigation is complete. That is what the evidence tells me. That is what procedure demands. That is what my job requires. But my hand will not move to sign the paper. My fingers will not grip the pen. Some part of me, the part that knows what signature means, that understands what filing this closure will trigger, that part refuses to participate. And so I sit here, hours past end of shift, alone in the precinct, staring at unsigned paperwork, unable to move forward, unable to move back, unable to do anything except exist in this moment of terrible knowledge and impossible choice. This is what the pattern has made me. This is what understanding has cost me. This is what it means to be necessary to evil. Not that I intend harm, not that I choose destruction, but that I am paralyzed by knowledge, frozen by understanding, trapped by the very competence that once defined me. I have become useless through awareness. I have become harmless through comprehension. And maybe that is the only victory available. Maybe the only way to stop being a tool is to stop functioning as one. Maybe the only way to break the pattern is to break myself. But even as I think this, even as I sit here refusing to sign, refusing to close, refusing to complete the pattern, I know it is temporary. I know that tomorrow my captain will ask why this case is still open. I know that next week the pressure will increase. I know that eventually I will either have to close this case or explain why I will not. And I cannot explain without revealing everything. And revealing everything means admitting my participation in 40 deaths. And that admission is something I cannot make. So I will sign eventually. I will close the case eventually. I will complete the pattern eventually. The question is not whether but when. And when I do, someone will die. Elena's roommate who misses her. Elena's professor who worried about her. Elena's study partner who last saw her alive. One of them will be found in 3 to 7 days, seated peacefully, hands folded, head tilted right, dead from cardiac arrest that medicine cannot explain. And I will know I killed them. I will know I selected them. I will know I completed the process that ended their life. And I will continue working because that is what I do, what I am, what I cannot stop being, even when being it means being instrumental to murder. I picked up the pen twice tonight. Both times I held it over the signature line. Both times I could not make my hand move to sign. The second time I held it there for 10 minutes, just waiting for my hand to obey my mind, waiting for my fingers to complete the simple mechanical action of signing my name. But they would not. My body has become a battleground between what I know I should do professionally and what I know I should do morally, and neither side can win because both sides are wrong. Professionalism demands I close the case. Morality demands I prevent the death that closure causes. But keeping the case open is also wrong professionally and may cause harm morally if Elena is in danger. There is no right choice. There is no correct action. There is only the choice to participate in a system I understand is evil or to abandon my function entirely and become someone I do not recognize. And I do not know how to choose. I do not know how to be. I do not know what I am anymore except afraid and guilty and trapped and tired beyond any exhaustion I have ever known. Morning comes. 6:17. The light hits the window at exactly the right angle. I make coffee in the same blue mug. 3 spoons. 195 degrees. For minutes, I drive the same route. Elm to 5th. 3rd row, 4th space. I review my notes from last night's scene. I identify leads to follow. I plan my interviews. I prepare my questions. I do what I have always done. I do what I will always do. I solve problems. I restore order. I complete patterns. People die because of this. People will continue to die because of this. I know this now. I have always known this. I will always know this. And I continue anyway, because the pattern demands completion, because order demands routine, because I demand to be good at what I do, regardless of what it costs, regardless of who it kills, regardless of the truth I can no longer deny. I am not hunting a murderer. I am not solving a mystery. I am completing a process I cannot stop and will not escape. I am the detective who solves cases. I am the mechanism that selects victims. I am the routine that enables murder. I am the pattern. The pattern is me. And patterns, once established, are very hard to break.